ready. Thank you very much.
Thanks all. Hello and welcome to you all. I'm delighted to see so many of you joining online. And as you'll have seen, this session is also being recorded. So if there's something you miss, the video will be put up on the Maynooth University Library website in due course. So it's nice to know that you have that resource. So my name is Marian Crowley-Henry, and I'm an associate professor in Maynooth University School of Business. And my area is organizational behavior and human resource management within the School of Business. But I'm here with you today in my capacity as the co-editor-in-chief of the Irish Journal of Management, which is an open access journal that's affiliated with the Irish Academy of Management. So it's that academy of scholars in the management discipline in the island of Ireland. So I'm just going to share some slides. I'm going to share my screen, so just bear with me a moment. There we go. Sorry, wrong one, I think. And just have to minimize me there. I'm hoping everybody can see that screen.
Yep, that's up now.
Thank you. Thanks. Just because I can't see it when it's in full screen mode. So first of all, before I get into the presentation, sincere thank you to Fiona Morley and to the library for inviting me to present on the Irish Journal of Management during what is Research Week, and a very successful Research Week here at Maynooth University. So there's lots of events running this week celebrating Maynooth University's different research engagements. So I can't see the chat, but while I'm presenting it, if you're happy to maybe put into the chat where you're joining us from, that would be great. If you're from Maynooth or if you're from outside of Maynooth, that would be great, just to kind of, I guess, see what kind of community we have joining us today. So as I mentioned, I'm the co-editor-in-chief of the Irish Journal of Management. My other co-editor is Professor Crystal Miller, and she's from Ulster University. As I mentioned, the Irish Journal of Management is affiliated with the Irish Academy of Management, which is an all-island, or so for the island of Ireland, Academy of Management scholars. The term of office as editor for the journal is 3 years, extendable to 4 years. I'm coming to the end of my 3rd year, but we'll be continuing on into 2024, myself and Crystal as well. I'm hoping that this presentation will be quite informal. My plan is just to introduce you to the journal as an open access online only journal, which is very, I think, appealing to a lot of people. A lot of us publishing are interested where we can see online first, where if we have something published or that's been accepted for publication, that it's out there in the community, online, available first of all, before then it's been put into an issue. So it gets our work out there faster. Also going to explain how you can submit or review for the Irish Journal of Management, and there'll be time for question and answer at the end. So if you have questions on anything I cover going through the presentation, just put it into the chat as well, and we'll have a look at the end. I'm thinking this will take, my presentation might be about 20 minutes, so there'll be ample time for discussion afterwards, or we finish the session early, so whatever works best. So the image there on the screen, you'll see the Irish Journal of Management. It has a lot of history, I guess. It used to be called IBAR, and it's been around for some time, and moved online in the teens, I guess, in the 2015, 2016 era, where there's no more print versions available. It's all just online only now. Sorry, just next slide. Okay, so what is interesting, I guess, for scholars in this era in terms of predatory journals? I think a lot of us have heard about predatory journals, have been warned about predatory journals. I can confirm that the Irish Journal of Management is not a predatory journal, doesn't look for any fees, doesn't look for you to pay to publish. It's all about the quality of your research. It's also ranked in the CABS, or the Chartered Association of Business Schools, as an ABS 1, which signifies, I guess, that it is a quality non-predatory journal, that it has been peer reviewed, and that it has an international reach. Despite being called the Irish Journal of Management, we have people publishing that are from outside Ireland and publishing on different topics and different themes. So in terms of what the open access rules are, so it offers gold open access, which is free readership rights immediately upon publication. And it follows the CC BY NCND, which basically means authors don't possess commercial rights. And the author may post the final version of their paper to any repository or website. So if you publish in the Irish Journal of Management, you can also post the final version of your paper to your university research platform or to your own personal website. So the article's full text, metadata, supporting data, citations, it's machine readable, accessible via API, and full text XML. So that's kind of the I suppose the background, I suppose the ins and outs of the technology behind the Irish Journal of Management and the metrics of it. As I mentioned, it doesn't have any article processing charges or article submission charges. So it's all by quality. So there's a double blind peer review, which I'll explain a bit more as I go through the presentation. Just to reiterate, in this era of being bombarded by predatory journals, in terms of, I've seen your work here, come publish here, you just have to pay me this. Be very wary. I know in the management discipline, we're being warned quite a lot against predatory journals. They don't really count in terms of promotion material either if you're going for promotion and you're trying to publish in reputable sources. So just be very, very careful of that, and to realize the Irish Journal of Management is not, it's open access, it's online only. So I'll show you the screen in a moment where you can actually see material that's been published and is online first as well. So to reiterate, no author charges, free open access, online only, which is great for dissemination. You've ahead of print, so you're not waiting, as I mentioned, for an issue to be launched. We generally have 2 issues a year. So as you can appreciate, if your article is ready in February, you don't really want to wait till the end of June for it to be published. So it's great that you can have your article available ahead of print. As I mentioned, it's an ABS 1, so that's ranked. So that's academic recognition of quality in business management discipline. The top tier journals are ranked ABS 4-star, and they go all the way down to the ABS 1. And then you have an awful lot of management journals that are outside of the ABS ranking, where it's not so clear in terms of the quality of the material that's being published there. It goes under a double blind peer review. For those of you that mightn't be familiar what that means that when you submit to the journal, you just submit your manuscript with no, you submit through a different page your author details, so we know who you are and we know how to contact you. But on the manuscript itself, you provide no author details. And then when it's being sent out to review, the reviewers have no idea who you are. So you don't know who the reviewers are, and the reviewers don't know who you are. So that's this idea of double blind. So the idea is that it's really objective analysis. There's no kind of power going on here that somebody's reputation gets them published before somebody else. So it's really based on the quality of the work that you are submitting. So there's an online manuscript system, and I'll share the slides of this as well with the library after the presentation, and that can be shared as well on that site, just so that it's easier for you to actually log on to the system. So there's an online manuscript system that I'll show you at the end if we have time, in kind of a live version. And on that system, those of you that are familiar with submitting to other journals, you have to register as a user. You have to give your email, you have to give your name, your details, and then you're given a password and all of that. So that's through the system. So you register first of all on the system. You can register to be a reviewer for the journal, but quite often what we see is people registering when they want to submit material. So you register as an author. Very important, and this is more general advice to any of you that are submitting, be it to an open access journal or to any journal, read the author guidelines. For every journal, academic journal that you want to submit to, They have their own kind of way or toolkit of how they want articles to appear in their journal. So it's very important to read the author guidelines. This can be quite, people might think it's quite, innocuous or kind of boring material, because it is like, what font are you going to use? How long should your submission be? What headings do you use? Do you center your headings? How long should your title be? Do you need to have a subtitle? All those kind of elements, as well as your referencing. So what referencing system are you using? For the Irish Journal of Management, it's the Harvard referencing system that we use, which means that in the body of the text, you cite the authors that you're referring to just by name and year. And then in the final references section of the article, you can provide the full reference detail in terms of the title of the article that those authors wrote, the journal or the book that that chapter was in, or the journal that that article appeared in, along with all identifying information. So the journal number, the journal issue, and the page range. So very strict on making sure that any resources or any sources that you cite, they're easily accessible to anybody else that's looking at your work and thinking, wow, that concept is quite interesting. How do I find out more? They can go to your references and really easily find the source of who you're citing and what you're citing. Other advice then in terms of publishing in general, but I suppose especially for the Irish Journal of Management, read previous papers from the journal just to get an idea of style in the journal. This is advice, I guess, that goes across the Irish Journal of Management. No matter where you want to publish, make sure you have read a few papers from that journal and you do get a sense of, okay, where the methodology is, or methodology normally required, how long is that, in terms of the findings, what kind of visual representation is used, are figures the norm, are tables the norm, or what might be standard in those different journals. Then the next step there is upload your paper. And as I mentioned, it's blind. So that means you don't have on the PDF or on the Word document of your paper that you're submitting, you don't have any author identifying details. Okay, so that's very important. First reason why people get papers returned to them at desk review is because they've left in some author identifying details. Okay, and that straight away interferes with the integrity of the review process in terms of if you identify yourself, it's sent out to review with your name and whatever on it. The reviewers will come back and say, I can't review that because, now I know the person and it's just going to maybe shade or color my review. So just to make sure that it's as objective as possible, you need to have no identifying details on your manuscript. Next point, I guess, is once it goes through, once it's sent out to review, once you've uploaded your paper, the editor, myself, for instance, or Crystal, look at it to see, okay, does it meet the types of paper that we accept or that we look at in the Irish Journal of Management? Is it blind? So that means that there's no other information in terms of your author details on it. And then we look for who's best placed to review this. So what expert reviewers do we have in that area that you submitted in, be it maybe in marketing, could be in entrepreneurship, could be in human resource management or leadership or whatever. We look then and seek out 2 independent expert reviewers. So then that's sent to them to review. At the moment, there's always been, I guess, a lot of, you might experience it as well if you're working as reviewers, and the amount of material that might be sent to academics to review, which is quite time consuming. If you're doing a good review, you could spend up to a day reviewing a paper. So there is then hoping that the reviewers will accept to take on the review. So that's what's important for you as well when you're submitting papers, to make sure your abstract is catchy, is interesting, is appealing to reviewers, and making them kind of think, yes, that's a paper I'm quite interested in my domain. It's one I'd like to review. So then that's sent to them to review. We generally give 4 to 5 weeks to reviewers to review the paper. Quite often reviewers come back and look for extensions because they're doing their normal academic work alongside this volunteering work of reviewing papers. But generally, we're hoping to get reviews back within the 6-week period. And then depending on the feedback from the reviewers, it might result in your paper being rejected. So the reviewer is thinking, no, it's not good enough yet. It's not ready for publication. Too much more work is needed. You know, maybe more information is required for your data set. Maybe you need to do more interviews. Maybe you need a larger sample. Maybe your theory doesn't quite fit. Maybe it's more practitioner level, which doesn't meet an academic journal, or whatever the reason might be. What's important, even if it is a reject after a review, is that you get comments, you get feedback, which then informs your decision on how you're going to pursue or how you're going to forward that research further, in terms of whether you're going to take those reviewer comments on board and bolster up the arguments in the journal or in the paper in order to maybe make it more publishable going forward, and then possibly resubmitting. The other decision might be, okay, that it's a fantastic paper, it's going to be accepted, maybe we're going to just need a few small changes. It might be typos here and there, it might be adding a few more references, it might be wording in places. Sometimes we have sentences that are paragraphs, so like one sentence paragraphs, which can be very difficult to read. So it could be even advice on, you know, breaking those down into more readable, shorter sentences. But that's quite often the main response you'll get after the review cycle is a revision, okay? And that's brilliant. So if you see a revision coming in, that's great. It means you've whetted the interest of the reviewers, that you've got some kind of nuggets in the paper that just needs maybe some further refinement, needs maybe some further analysis, or some further deep reflection in terms of what's the contribution that you're trying to make. So very important in terms of that last point out on this slide is this engaging in the review process. When you think of reviewers, you know, taking on reviews, spending a day of their time that they could be preparing classes or working on their own research to review your paper, and then giving feedback in terms of how maybe you need to structure it differently, or advice in terms of literature that you should add in, all these kind of different advice that's offered by the reviewer. Very important then, when you get those comments back, is to engage in the review process. And what that means is basically taking the feedback from the editor, so from me or from Crystal, along with the feedback from the reviewers, reviewer 1 and reviewer 2, and point by point of their comments addressing the concerns. So when you're working on revising the paper, it's very much then you're looking at, okay, what was missing in the original version? How have I changed that version to address that comment? So not only do you revise the paper, but you also in parallel prepare what's called a response to reviewers. And that's quite detailed. How I like to see it is generally you have all of the reviewers' comments, you have the editor's comments, and then you have the reviewers' comments, maybe on one side of a table or under one heading or whatever. And then you have you as the author, the response to each of those and how you've addressed it. Important to say at this point, there may be some things reviewers will say that might contradict each other, or there might be some things that reviewers say that you just don't agree with. It's not fundamental in your way of thinking, or it doesn't really align with what you're trying to get across in the paper. So this is your chance as well in that document, in the response to reviewers, to address that and to say, well, you know, this literature was recommended by the reviewer. You know, actually, when we revisited the paper, we actually found that this literature stream was actually more applicable, or was more appropriate. And so that's why we went with it. And here's why. And you give it the explanation, and you unpack really, I suppose, the decisions that you've made in the revision. So that's very important for the reviewers to get back as well, so that when you complete your revision of the paper and you resubmit it, the reviewers get your resubmission, so the new article, but they also get that response. So they can see then, oh, okay, so they have addressed that concern that we had. And they've said, okay, on page 5, under methodology, they've actually added in 2 more qualitative interviews, for instance. And so they can easily see then, this person's taken it on board. It was worth my while spending that day reviewing. And, you know, then the process starts again, whether or not they decide whether to accept the paper, whether there's minor revisions, major revisions required, or whether still they don't feel the paper is a match, or is quite ready for publication, and then it might be a reject after that. So this is what the screen, a screen grab, I guess, when you're logging in to the Irish Journal of Management submission system. So it's, as you hopefully can see on the screen, hopefully what you can see is big enough. The Irish Journal of Management, it's published by Siendo. So it's an international publication house. And they manage this kind of submission system, or this back office system, in terms of where you submit and where you have your details, where we can find what reviewers are on the system, and all of that. So hopefully you can see, if I move the mouse around, when you're starting off, if you're not familiar with the Irish Journal of Management, what you do first of all is you look to register. Okay, so I'm starting the register there. Once you've registered, you'll be assigned a login, generally your email and a password. So that once you have registered, you'll be able to just log into the system directly. Okay, and then as you'll see here at the bottom as well, there's links to the journal homepage. So you can see past journals, or sorry, past issues of the journal that have been published. Great to have a look at those previous papers to get an idea of length, to get an idea of content. Always good when you're submitting to a journal is to speak to conversations that are going on in that journal. So you're kind of joining the conversation, so to speak. Also on that page, you'll see that there's instructions for authors. There's that author guidelines that I spoke to you about, where it's the formatting of the paper, really, in terms of, are headings centered, are they left aligned, are they bold, are they underlined, are sections numbered, are they not, you know, what the normal sections would be. All of that is explained there. Okay, then we have other guidelines for reviewers, and we have the information on the open access license. So that's all straight away when you look at the front page. When you're going about submitting, then you'll log in first of all, and you'll go into the submit a manuscript tab there at the top. And there's a number of screens that you'll fill in. So that's where you're going to be filling in the information about the author details. So it could be you as the author, you might have a number of co-authors, so you'll be adding their details to make sure that their names are also aligned or associated with the paper. And you'll be giving details in terms of who the corresponding author is. And what the corresponding author is, or who that is, that's the person that basically, if there's any comments or in terms of decisions that are being made, it's that person's email that is the information is being sent to. Okay. So that's kind of just to give an idea of what the interface looks like when you want to register or then log in and submit a manuscript to the Irish Journal of Management. So this page is then, what I'm showing you here is what it looks like afterwards. So after you've published, more or less, and you're wondering, okay, well, where can I actually share the links? Where can I share information about what I've actually published with my colleagues, with my family, with people that are around the world or whatever? This is a website also from Siendo, and it has a lot of the background information. Again, it has obviously the title, it has the aims and the scopes. So here it tells you the types of papers that are accepted, that are looked at, or at least reviewed for the Irish Journal of Management. The majority of them being research papers, so academic research papers. We also look at teaching submissions, have to have some research behind it, have to be research informed. Some book reviews, we haven't had very much traction in terms of book reviews. And then we also have special issue journal submissions. So if you're in a university or you're in a research cluster and you're thinking, you know, could you having a special issue on green HRM, for instance, or sustainability in marketing or something, and you think, well, you know, really could do it having a special issue on this, where we could call on experts in this field around the world or in Ireland to submit articles that are in this domain. We also take a look at those, okay? And we publish about one special issue journal a year. So just to note that as well. again, this is just a screen grab, so I can't kind of show you it directly, but there's also a tab there to the editorial board, so you can have a look at who's on the editorial board. You'll see that on that there's a number of national and international professors and scholars that are on the editorial board. And they basically are involved in reviewing papers and in advising us, the editors, behind the scenes in terms of scope and direction of the journal. The next tab that I'll just focus on here is issues, and this is where you will go basically if you want to see your article published. So you'll click on issues and it'll bring you to another screen where you can either look at articles that have been published online first. That means they're available before the issue is ready, which, as I mentioned, is twice. There's 2 issues every year. So that's kind of the main one for authors that want to go in and share the link, be it to your own institutions if you're working in a university or 3rd level institution, or if you want to share it with family members or whatever. This is open. Again, this website is open, so you can just share it with family and friends. Okay, so that's just more, I suppose, background information about the open access and how that looks like, the figures and how that is explained. It says your publication timeframe 3 times a year. We're actually down to about twice a year now. We've gotten more into the quality as opposed to the quantity. So we really focus on getting quality material out twice a year. It is in English. That's actually a query before, in case maybe it's coming up in the chat, but I can't see the chat at this stage. But we do get a number of submissions from international markets, so from people from Asia and from Africa. And sometimes they ask, okay, well, what about proofreading or copy editing? So we don't provide any copy editing services. We just take the material that's there, go through the review cycle, make sure that there's quality. We obviously check for plagiarism. We check to make sure it hasn't been published elsewhere, that it is authentic and novel work. But English is the language that we accept material in, and we don't provide translation or copy editing services. So people would have to fund that themselves if English isn't their first language. So this lists the subjects that are included. So it's quite broad across the business management area. You've got some accounting, finance, corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, business ethics, sustainability, education, teaching and learning, entrepreneurship and small business management, healthcare and public sector management, leadership and organizational behavior, marketing and services management, strategy and international business, technology and innovation management, work, employment and organization. Okay, so it's quite broad. And you'll see that in the issues that we publish, we do provide a range of articles. So unless it's a special issue, it's rare you'll find all marketing and services management in one issue. You'll find quite a mixture, which is a nice general management journal overview. And that moves on then to the audience. So the audience for the Irish Journal of Management, it is an academic journal. It is sent out to academic peer reviewers. So these are people that will be looking for the theory behind it, and also looking in terms of what contribution you're making to theory and implications for management practice. So the audience, those that read the Irish Journal of Management, would be fellow academics in the business management space, researchers in this area as well. Practitioners are also interested, for instance, those affiliated with the CIPD or the Irish Instituting the Learning and Developments Institute of Ireland, for instance, also interested to see, well, what's topical at the moment, and also targeting policymakers, because a lot of the articles, well, they'll always be a call for what contribution are you making and what are the management implications of that, and they might be policy implications as well. I alluded to novelty and the need for it to be novel and the plagiarism policy. So we have, our Ciendo basically has behind the scenes on that platform a similarity check system, which really checks to make sure, has that article that's been submitted, been submitted elsewhere, what percentage of it is similar to something that's already existing. And that's the technology behind that is updating constantly. So we're very au fait or up to date in terms of how legitimate or how novel articles are. So make sure that anything you submit has not been submitted elsewhere or has not been published elsewhere. Otherwise, it's an immediate or an automatic desk reject. So this is another screen grab. So here's when you look at that previous site that I mentioned earlier, where it had the issues. If you go into that, and you can then filter down by a head of print and see what's available before the issue comes out. Okay, and you'll see that all of these are open access. You can download the PDF. You can download the citation, so then the reference is available to other people so they can cite your work elsewhere. And you also have the opportunity to preview that article in HTML, so on the website. Okay, so that's just to share that. It's just another note regarding the material. As I mentioned at the very beginning, the Irish Journal of Management is associated, or it's the journal that's affiliated with the Irish Academy of Management, which is an academy of management scholars. It's a charity organization, so people pay, we pay for membership, everybody pays a membership. There's an annual conference a year. This current year it was in Galway, and they also have a website. And so this is what another screen grab of what the Irish Academy of Management website looks like. And why I'm bringing that up is you'll see that one of the tabs there is the journal. And again, that then links straight away back into the Siendo manuscript upload system and into the website where you can see the previous issues or the issues that have been published. So there's a number of websites really or ways that you can access the journal. So currently, and why I included this is just to show that we have a special issue call at the moment for the Irish Journal of Management. The deadline is the 31st of January 2024, and there's more information on that in the website, and I can talk you through that as well in terms of what we're looking at there. Issue volume 42, issue 1 was published in July. So anything that's published between now and the end of the year will be online first until that issue is finished. Also on that page, you can go back to past issues, and there's links to how you can submit a manuscript, the author's guidelines, and all of that there as well. We also, on that webpage, part of the Irish Academy of Management webpage, we have a reviewers recognition tab, because a lot of reviewers, as I mentioned, giving up time, a day or up to a day to review an article. So we include their names, the university affiliation that they have, just so that they can get some acknowledgement for it, and they can share that with maybe their management or their administrators in their business unit or wherever they are in whatever institution they are, to show their citizenship to the discipline and the scholarship of management in being a reviewer. So otherwise, what I was going to talk through, general information, my personal experience of the publication process. As an author, I have published in the Irish Journal of Management. I published in a special issue that was related to COVID-19. So I found it a great platform to actually share a piece of research that I'd done with some undergraduate students in terms of how COVID-19 was affecting people internationally. So the international diaspora and how they were affected during COVID-19. So as an author, publishing anywhere, it's great for promotion, it's great for research dissemination, especially when it's open access. So as part of your email signature, you can put a link or embed a link into your email signature directly to that open access article. So it allows people that are communicating with you, be it students, be it peers, be it other institutions, research bodies, that if they're looking at your signature, they can see, she's published there or he's published there, and click in and get to read your work straight away. As a reviewer, I've been involved in the publication process, and it is a developmental process. So it's a great way of, again, if you're thinking, how can I put this on my CV or my academic CV? It's a great way of developing others. It is mentorship. It is collegiality to peers, to colleagues in your area, of giving guidance of, okay, because there is a knack, or there is a way of publishing, or there is a way of writing, that you make sure you have an introduction section, that you make sure that you talk about literature, academic literature, that you make sure that you have a method section, be it if it's conceptual paper, okay, what theories are you drawing on? If it's an empirical paper, was it big data? Was it a survey? Was it qualitative data? How you went about analyzing it? And then they'll be looking at the findings section, discussion, and your conclusion. So trying to tie it all together. So again, you're developing people, just in developing others in terms of maybe how they should structure their papers, and maybe where there might be some weaknesses in some parts of the paper. So also I've experienced them as an editorial board member. So I would have started off, I guess, before I became an editor-in-chief, on a number of editorial boards, and I'm still on editorial boards for higher ranked journals in the business and management discipline. And again, that gives you experience in terms of, you know, best practices in reviewing papers, the quality standards that are required, the challenges that journals might face in terms of finding reviewers that are willing to take on this extra work, and then rewarding reviewers. And in terms of the whole review cycle, making sure that it's as short as possible for authors, because as authors or as researchers, we want to get our research out there as quickly as possible. So I've experienced there as well as an editorial board member, and now as an editor-in-chief, where it's really looking at not just seeing what papers are coming through, but determining the strategic direction of the journal. So myself and Crystal, we'd have a number of discussions with Sienda, with the publisher, in terms of trends that they're seeing. We'd have a number of discussions with the Irish Academy of Management, Irish Journal of Management Committee, that's part of the Irish Academy of Management Council, in terms of the scope and the future direction of the journal as well. So there's a lot of, I suppose, tasks involved in editor. You're reviewing, you're giving feedback, you're considering the strategic direction, you're having a lot of meetings, trying to get technology improvements and all of that behind the scenes. So just to kind of, I guess, maybe wrap up and see if there's some Q&A. Just wanted to finish on the top, maybe 3 aspects of a successful publication for anybody. And this is in terms of, for you as an author, if you're authoring a paper, but also in terms of reviewers, and what reviewers will always come back to will be elements of these top aspects for successful publication. It's the relevance. So what's the contribution you're making? What's the so what? And have that really upfront in the abstract, in the introduction, in your conclusions, in your contribution section. So are you contributing to theory development? Are you contributing to a specific literature focus? Are you contributing to something empirically? So this study has been done before, but never in an Irish context, or this study has been done before, but never in the health context, or whatever. And so you're looking really to show to the readers, why is it relevant for you to read this research? Why is my paper important? That links in with the real second aspect, is to have a clear research question, have a clear focus. So if your relevance is, okay, it's relevant, it's in this specific literature domain, it's important to scholarship in this area, it's contributing to knowledge in this domain, and here's specifically how it's doing that. So you're really giving clear research questions, how you're addressing that research gap or that area that needs extra research looked at. So it's very important that you have a clear and distinctive scholarly and literature debate. Why that's relevant as well, with my editor's hat on, when I'm looking for a reviewer for your paper, it's important to know, okay, what discipline is it? First of all, so which discipline, which literature is it speaking to? Is it entrepreneurship? Is it finance? So then when I'm looking to find a reviewer that's expert in that area, I can hone in on who the best people might be. Also then methodologically sound. So needing to have some idea of, is it a conceptual paper? Be clear that this is a conceptual paper. And if it is a conceptual paper, you're developing then the theory that might already be existing and bringing that forward. If it's an empirical paper, okay, so who's your sample? What are your research questions? What were they asked and what did you find? Or if it's a review paper, potentially you're doing a literature review, you're doing a bibliometric review of existing literature in a specific area, and you're seeing maybe what trends are in that area, and then coming up to say, well, here's the trends in that area. So having the confidence to say, here are the gaps that remain. So you're kind of really having a call to action to other researchers in terms of what research might be required in the future. Red flags then, okay, when you're submitting, and with my editorial hat on, why articles get desk rejected. First of all, it might not fit the journal, okay? So if you're an engineer, you do not submit a paper to the Irish Journal of Management. So you need to look at and read the journal's aims. Second reason might be a lack of clarity as to the aims of the paper. So that's contrary to what I mentioned, what you need to have. So have that focus, have that contribution. Sometimes academics, there's loads going on in our minds and we want to solve all the problems of the world. Just pare it back, solve, okay, what's the core issue, and address that issue in the paper. If you have too much going on, it might mean that you have multiple papers that you're trying to fit into one. Other red flags: overstating relevance, overstating the findings. So again, it's I suppose a nice balance between being very assertive in sharing what it is you found, and also being modest in saying, here's what we found, but here's what we didn't find. Here's what gaps are remaining. Here's what further research needs to look at. And here's why it might be more relevant. Other red flags: poorly written abstract and introduction. As I mentioned, to grab reviewers, to grab an audience, it's having that kind of, what is it for them? What's in it for them to read this article? Why is it important? And my last point there, it should be polished. So I think this image might show it a lot more. So this might be a nice polished paper, rather than your kind of strung together bits of work submitted. So what it means by polished is there a flow? Does one section, one paragraph flow neatly into the next section, the next paragraph? Does what you say about in the introduction, what you say you're going to do, have you actually done it? And have you wrapped that up in the conclusions as well? So it is very much that presentation skills training, say what you're going to say it, and then say why you've said it. So similarly, you write what the article is about, then you give the body of what the article is about, and then in the conclusions you wrap up and say, well, here's how I looked at that specific concern. Okay, and this is the very last slide. So just to wrap up, on the Irish Journal of Management, the key and takeaway information: no author charges, free open access, online, it's ahead of print, so you do get a DOI as well, your document identification number. It's ABS 1, so that's in the business management domain. It's got a quality marker, it's recognized. It goes through the double-blind peer review. So again, anybody that might be concerned that, oh my God, I can't, my article was rejected, that reviewer now knows who I am. They don't know who you are, okay? I have oversight of that as editor, but we're bound by confidentiality as well. It's the whole ethics of the procedure that it's double blind. And there are the website details there as well, that, as I mentioned, I'll ask for the library to share afterwards. So I'm just going to stop sharing there. I'm way over the time I thought I'd be, and see if there's any queries.